The world lost a quiet yet fierce warrior on Wednesday. Ananda Lewis, the vibrant, intelligent, and deeply passionate television host who helped shape the cultural landscape of the late 90s and early 2000s, passed away at the age of 52. Her death, which occurred at exactly 11:35 a.m. while in hospice care at her Los Angeles home, marked the end of a long and difficult journey with breast cancer. But more than that, it marked the end of a chapter that helped define a generation, one that grew up watching her command the screen with poise, fire, and unshakable dignity. It was her sister, Lakshmi, who broke the devastating news on Facebook, in a post that many have since called both heartbreaking and beautiful. In her message, Lakshmi wrote not only as a sibling in mourning, but as someone who had stood by Ananda through the darkest hours of her life. She spoke of pain, but she also spoke of peace. She celebrated the end of Ananda's suffering, a suffering that had lasted years, hidden behind the kind of public silence that often accompanies private battles. Her death, Lakshmi said, wasn't just a moment of loss. It was also a release, a liberation from a body that had fought valiantly, from a disease that had waged war against her spirit, and from the long, grueling treatment process that had taken its toll on her physically, mentally, and emotionally. According to what Lakshmi shared with TMZ Hip Hop, Ananda had been living with stage 4 breast cancer for 6 years, 6 long years, and throughout those years, she had chosen to forge her own path. She didn't blindly follow the conventional medical route, nor did she completely abandon science. Instead, she crafted her own version of healing, sometimes traditional, sometimes holistic, always personal. She tried what felt right to her. She listened to her body. She listened to her soul. And perhaps most poignantly, she made peace with her decisions long before anyone else could fully understand them. To the public, Ananda's diagnosis had only become widely known in recent months. But to her family, her close friends, and a few chosen confidants in the industry, it was a silent battle that she fought with immense courage. She didn't want pity. She didn't want to be remembered as a woman dying from cancer. She wanted to live fully, even if that life had an expiration date looming above it. And so she did just that. She showed up for her son. She stayed close to her family. She continued her advocacy work. And though she stepped away from the spotlight in later years, her absence was not one of retreat, but of refocusing, of reprioritizing what really mattered. Lakshmi, in her statement, also shared something that left many people with tears in their eyes. Ananda's 14-year-old son had graduated from middle school on the same day she passed. A day that should have been full of celebration and pride became unbearably bittersweet. A child standing at the threshold of his future, just as he lost one of the most important people in his life. The dichotomy of joy and pain, hope and sorrow, was overwhelming. For many, it was the very definition of life itself, beautiful, tragic, and completely unpredictable. Ananda's journey with breast cancer had its own turning points. In an interview from October 2024, she opened up about her decision not to undergo a mastectomy. For her, it wasn't an easy choice, but it was an informed one. She wasn't rebelling against the medical system. She simply didn't believe it was the right path for her. That moment of disclosure was raw, honest, and incredibly brave. It wasn't meant to spark debate. It was meant to shed light on the complexity of medical choices, especially for women of color, especially for those who've spent their lives being told what to do with their bodies. Her story, her presence, her strength, it meant something. And for those who had the privilege of knowing her, or even simply watching her on TV, Ananda Lewis was more than just a VJ on MTV. She was more than just a pretty face reading from a teleprompter. She was smart. She was articulate. She was real. She was someone who made you sit up and pay attention, not because she demanded it, but because she earned it. Ananda first rose to national fame as a host on MTV in the late 1990s. At a time when the network was at the height of its cultural influence, she became one of its most prominent voices. She wasn't just another bubbly TV personality. She brought a sense of grounded authenticity to every show she hosted. Whether it was Total Request Live or the wild, unpredictable spring break specials, Ananda brought class, depth, and an undeniable charisma that set her apart from her peers. She wasn't trying to be cool, she just was. And in doing so, she made being intelligent, compassionate, and thoughtful look cool too. Her talent didn't go unnoticed. She quickly transitioned into her own self-titled syndicated daytime talk show, The Ananda Lewis Show, which allowed her to have deeper conversations with her audience and guests. The format may have been similar to other daytime talk shows, but Ananda's voice brought something different to the table. She wasn't there to exploit people's stories or manufacture drama. She was there to listen, to offer insight, to foster real conversations in a time when reality TV and celebrity gossip were just beginning to take over mainstream media. But her career didn't stop at talk shows. Ananda went on to become a correspondent for several major broadcast networks. She reported on stories that mattered, covered events that shaped the nation, and continued to use her platform to elevate voices that were often overlooked. She never forgot where she came from, and she never forgot the responsibility that came with being in front of a camera. Outside of the television world, she poured her heart into causes she believed in. She became a spokesperson for the Humane Society, advocating for the protection and ethical treatment of animals. It wasn't just a PR move, it was real. Ananda loved animals, and she believed they deserved a voice, just like the underrepresented communities she fought for, just like the people who never got invited to the table unless someone like her pulled out a chair for them. And while the public admired her for her beauty, her intelligence, and her charm, those closest to her admired her for something far greater: her heart. She was the kind of person who showed up when it mattered, who made time even when she had none, who remembered birthdays, who called just to check in, who made you feel like you were the only person in the room. She carried herself with grace, but she wasn't afraid to call things out when they were wrong. She stood for truth, even when it made people uncomfortable. Since the news of her death broke, an outpouring of tributes from celebrities, former colleagues, friends, and fans has flooded social media. Many of them have shared how instrumental Ananda was in their careers, how her interviews weren't just interviews, but deeply human moments that made them feel seen. She had the unique ability to connect, not just with stars, but with the viewers at home who felt like she was speaking directly to them. There was an intimacy to the way she communicated, a warmth, a sincerity that made even the most cynical listener believe in authenticity again. Her memorial, which is expected to take place in a few weeks, is already being shaped into a celebration of her life, her work, and the indelible impact she had on an industry that too often forgets the souls behind the smiles. According to her family, many public figures have already reached out, asking to speak about how she touched their lives. But even beyond the celebrity tributes, it is the everyday people, those who watched her growing up, those who were inspired by her strength, those who felt less alone because of something she said, that will likely carry her legacy forward. What's most painful about Ananda Lewis's death isn't just that she's gone. It's that the world needed more of her wisdom, more of her bravery, more of her light in a time when the media has become increasingly saturated with noise. She represented something different, something real. She was a voice of reason in a chaotic world, and losing that voice feels like losing a compass.